Hey guys, welcome to Not a Game Podcast. My name is Gary. I'm your host for the show. Welcome. Come, grab a seat. Right, this is very exciting. How have you guys been? Hope you guys are doing fine. Right, I say today is gonna be exciting because we have Benny Davis with us. Benny Davis, we all know him in one way or another, right? He was the keyboardist for this band called Axis of Awesome, which sadly got disbanded, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well on the podcast. But before that, how I get to know him, right? He was watching a show, right, that I did a spot in the Mary Lion, right? And after the show, I hang out with Wayne Chong. Wayne Chong introduced Benny Davis to me and me to Benny Davis as well. And it's very exciting, right? Because I was able to identify him, but I do not know where I see him until he said that he was the keyboardist for the band of Axis of Awesome, which is great. Because I wonder what happened to that band, right? Because I remember back in the days where I saw this video of this three-piece band linking all the pop songs together with just 4 chords. I remember that band, so I managed to talk to him, right, and we hang out a little bit more often. But I was too afraid to ask what happened to the Axis of Awesome until this is one day where I plucked up the courage to ask him, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Can I have you on the podcast? Can I talk a little bit about the Axis of Awesome? And I say, yeah, sure, why not, right? And we talk about the Axis of Awesome, right? I found a little bit more about him as well, right? And why he left Australia, Sydney, and come down to Singapore to have a family here and to become the trailing husband. And we talk a lot about growing up, right? We talk a lot about of how he caught someone plagiarizing his songs. Without further ado, right? So enjoy this conversation that I have with Benny Davis, previously from the Axis of Awesome, right? Enjoy.
Room properly. I was like, well, I can't do that. It's too hard.
Where did you learn that diploma? Where did you get the diploma? Like is it like a...
What do you mean? It was. I wanted to learn how to properly record. You know, how to be an audio engineer. Yeah, so I just went to a school. I also wanted to do it part-time. I wanted to do it quick. And I wanted to just get the bit of paper, get the knowledge, and then go off. And this was perfect because it was a year long. It was part-time, 2 nights a week, easy. And I could get it out of the way before I had to be a parent.
But how long ago was this?
I graduated in May.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just got it. Yeah, so now I've spent the past 6 months being like, I don't know what to do with it now. Yeah.
But how long does you, but I suppose like the gigs that you have done previously helped you with the...
Yeah, totally. I'd already had experience doing the practice, but I didn't know how to do it properly because no one showed me. So there was so much stuff where I was like, if someone had just showed me that 10 years ago, I'd be better at it now. Instead, I've just been teaching myself, watching YouTube videos. Every time we went to a proper studio to record, I'd have to ask them. I'd be like, can you please just show me how I'm supposed to be doing this? Mm-hmm. And there were some moments where I'd watch them do something and I'm like, that's how I do it. Good. So I wasn't doing it wrong, but literally everything I did, I'm like, I don't know if this is how I'm supposed to do it, but this is how I'm doing it. So,
but this is how I would do it, right? Like I would just play with the knobs here and then see what works and what didn't work, and just adjust the gain. Sure, yeah. It's simple.
But you're talking for just like audio recording for podcasts, right? Yeah. See, I'm trying to be a mix engineer. I gotta, I want to mix everything from a rock band to an orchestra because sometimes I write rock music, sometimes I write orchestral pieces. So that's too much. And there's so much to it. Like there's so many plugins.
Oh, all right. Okay. I've watched the Axis of Awesome. Like the video. I think we should start there.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, we can talk about that. I don't know, but sure. Yeah.
What's that reaction about?
We broke up. I'm done. That was my career. It's really the only thing I've done, but I'm kind of over it. I look back at stuff we did, and I'm like, that's shit. The amount of stuff. I don't know. I'm probably being too honest already, but. So many memories. I have a lot of great memories of touring, and I had a lot of fun, and I loved performing, and I miss performing because I don't get to do it as much now. But yeah, I think back to a lot of stuff we did with the band, and I was like, we made some terrible decisions. And when I say we, I say the other two because I wasn't really in charge of business. So, like, yeah, I just think about, 2011, that was a terrible year. We went to America. We got this new management. They're all Hollywood and flashy. They're like, come to LA. We're going to show you the world. We'll make you kings. And then we just lost a lot of money and went home. And it sucked. And then we had to pay them back. So then we go to... Yeah, because the contract was terrible and they were just classic LA. And yeah, anyway, what else? Like, we got this grant from Australia, from the Australian government. They got a Screen Australia's division. And so we got this money to make this web series. And it was like, great, we can just put all the best stuff that we have, that we've written over the years, that fans love. And we can, we can put that on the internet, make it look super quality. And instead we did this, this really complex, labyrinthine, fake, behind-the-scenes mockumentary thing that I look back on and I was like, I didn't really get it at the time. I wasn't really on board. A lot of it was just more jokes about me. And then it hardly got any hits, and it was like, it was such a waste of taxpayer money. Like, yeah, but on the plus side, I had a good time. I got a great experience writing songs. I love writing music, and I liked recording music. And like I was saying before, I still don't think I'm very good at it, and I want to get better. Yeah, but... Yeah. What was your question?
I didn't even ask a question. You just went off. Okay, good.
I just know everyone's just like, so you were in the Axis of Awesome, and tell us about that. I'm like, I don't want to. Here's why I don't want to.
But it is good. Like, it makes my job easier.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great that I'm so scatterbrained. Yeah. I got loads of opinions. Tell me. Yeah. Ask me questions about other grudges I have with previous colleagues.
How many colleagues do you have?
Oh, that's a weird question because, like, I don't know. You work freelance. I work with a band, but define colleague, because if you go to a festival, then
everyone is a colleague.
Everyone's your colleague. So you're there with, you go to a place like Edinburgh, and all of a sudden, especially like Edinburgh was where we did the best. That was where we had our best following in the UK. And it meant that every year we could come back to Edinburgh and have big audiences there. And yeah, that was...
But how do you build up the audience? Because I'm thinking of going there this year.
Oh yeah, cool.
Just travel to spots.
Yeah, nice.
And stuff like that. So,
okay. This is always tough for me because people want advice, and I'm like, well, my experience is not like yours. Okay, so here's what you want to do. Do it the way I did. You want to write something in 2007, yeah? You want to do it just as YouTube's getting kind of popular, but not everyone is doing stuff on it. And then you're going to do a live performance of this song. Your 4 chords, your medley, that's your big money maker. Yeah, so you get together with 2 guys and you do a performance of that at a comedy festival in Melbourne, and then the footage of that will go viral on the internet in 2009. And then you'll go to Edinburgh and you'll have sold out shows because you have a following based on that. Yeah. So why don't you just do that? When people ask for advice, I'm like, man, a fraction of it is being good, and then the rest is marketing.
How much is that fraction? How much is...
It depends. I don't know. I personally like to think that being good is the most important part of it. But that's based on my taste. That's based on when I see people, I'm just like, the reason that you've done so well is, a little bit of marketing or, knowing yourself or knowing how to promote yourself and working really hard. But I like to think that the majority of it is because
they're good.
Because they're quality comedians. The problem is, that's not how the world works. So... I mean, the things that are the most mainstream, the biggest comedians, I don't think they're good, but they do really well.
And then we just go, why is that guy on TV again?
Yeah, totally. And I think, but that speaks to most media as far as I'm concerned. Like the biggest music, I don't think it's good music. I think it's actually the worst music that gets made is the most popular. I think the worst musicians are the most successful. Because I think they don't.
About Taylor Swift.
I mean, she's on the list. Yeah, I don't like her whole thing about being like this nice, pleasant face of the music industry when she's actually a showbiz bully. The whole riot beef with Katy Perry, like. She's not on Spotify, and then the day Katy Perry drops her album, she's like, oh, okay, now I'm on Spotify. Just to take the attention away. It's like, get her. And look, when we say Taylor Swift, we know it's not Taylor Swift. It's an army of people who are working at whatever label she's with, and they're the ones calling the shots. So she's like a puppet in this, I know. But yeah, that's what I mean. There's a whole industry. It's like, it's not about the performer. It's not about the performance. That's what I was going to say before. Like, for the people who are the most popular, the biggest in the world, the craft, the art that they make, that's like the last concern. They don't care. They just do whatever. So, I don't know, just be good.
That's what we all want to be.
Yeah, I think so. But what's good, right? Yeah, what's good? Who knows?
But you're talking about but like because like I say, I just want to go to Edinburgh to just do a couple of spots.
Totally.
Couple. It's a. Yeah.
You're gonna be there for the whole month?
No, I'm thinking of at least the last 2 weeks.
Last 2 weeks is good.
And I'll travel around Europe.
Oh, cool. You're gonna make like a little holiday, yeah?
Yeah.
You're gonna be touring, like trying to get gigs across Europe?
Yeah,
Or like,
I'm thinking of doing that. I take it that that's the Asia version of finding my own self.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so yeah, all the Europeans, they go backpacking to Tibet and they try to meditate, and you go and try and do comedy in front of European audiences. I like that. It's like an exchange program.
I feel like Asia is at the bottom of the rung.
In terms
when it comes to like every white people would want to come to Asia and just try to find themselves and do things like that.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's a cliche for backpackers. Yeah. But what do you mean bottom of the rung? Like in terms of what?
Like it's always like people who wants to come to Asia, not to like if I say, hey, I want to have a career in showbiz, I would go to LA, I would go to London. I would.
Yeah. You go to a hub. There's like meccas. You want especially you want to be big in comedy or in like a musical theater. You go to New York. But if you want to be big in, I don't know, like music industry, it depends what kind of music you do. Because you want to be a rapper, you want to be in Atlanta, and you want to be country music, you want to go to Nashville or something, right?
But if you like, if you want to do it in finance, you go to Wall Street. You wouldn't.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
and no one wants to come. Hey, I want to be good at something. Let's go to Malaysia.
Yeah, sure. Look, I get what you mean. Okay, so there's a lot that we're saying in that, but like, first of all, you're saying that people come to find themselves in Asia. Now, that's not true. We're in Singapore right now. No one comes to Singapore to find themselves.
Oh, I've heard people. I've been driving Grab.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are people who just try. Okay, maybe they don't intention to come to Singapore to find themselves. But they're traveling through like Singapore was just like 2-3 days.
Yeah, sure.
They just come and walk around. They wouldn't specifically stay here.
Yeah, totally. Sure. Yeah, but I mean, in the spiritual sense, this is not, this is not Tibet. This is not a spiritual place. This is a giant bank. Like this whole place. So when you say bottom of the rung, I'm like, it depends where you go. Malaysia is the Wild West, basically, compared to Singapore. But, it's... Yeah, I feel like generalizing about Asia, it's the same as generalizing about Europe, because like even Spain and Germany are totally different places, totally different vibe and attitude. Germany and Italy, like getting the train from one to the other, Germany is just clockwork, and as soon as you get over the border, Italy's just like, nah, we don't care, whatever. Train's gonna come, it won't come, you figure it out.
That sounds like a fun place to stay.
Well, that's no different from going from Singapore to Malaysia, right?
I have my reservation on that because I like Malaysia a lot.
Sure, yeah. I like getting up there. I do like it's a trade-off, right? Like Malaysia's more chill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Singapore is zero chill. No one's chill here. Like, actually, I think I saw the coolest thing that I've seen in Singapore yet. It's the only cool person that I feel like I've seen. There's good, like there's cool people, but not like global cool. It was a Malay dude riding a Harley Davidson, and he just looked something out of a Tarantino film. And I was just like, that's the coolest man in the country. I wanted to get his name. He just hogged on by. Oh well.
I think I see that a lot here. in a sense where you get to see like people. There's this part of me that just think that when people say that Singapore is just a very boring place, but
Yeah, it is.
but there are times where we just find gems. It's just hard to come by.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, how do you mean? What's your gem Singapore moment?
Just those weird people around. Like most of us are I would say like very straight, very normal.
Yeah, that's
And then you see a Malay dude on a Harley Davidson.
yeah, sure. Yeah. It's hard to say who's like, who's cool here. You know, it's I don't know. When you say straight laced, it's like I feel like that was kind of why I started doing comedy again, coming to the club, because I'm trying to meet some people who are just a little bit outside the box, because everyone is just so follow the rules, and no one thinks freely.
Have you are you disappointed now after going into the comedy scene in Singapore and just go, almost everyone thinks the same as well?
Oh, disappointed? No, definitely not. Because I wasn't interested in doing. After the band broke up, I felt like I was going to quit comedy for a while, and after a couple of years away, I started to miss it. So when I came back, everyone was like, Singapore comedy scene's not good. It's too small. You're not going to find good people here. But everyone said it was just there's nothing happening. But like when I started, what I like is that it is small, and it meant that I got to meet everyone already. I went to like 2 or 3 open mics, and I met the whole scene. And I already knew Sam from doing some improv. I met Jackie doing improv with the
how did you get to know him?
From doing improv. What do you mean?
Are you in the improv scene?
I started doing improv here before I did comedy.
Oh, okay.
Just because improv is a gig I did. Like I've done improv for like 15 years. I didn't do improv. I play music for the show, so. Sad scene, Sam music. I was the accompanist. Yeah, so I met Sam and Jackie doing a gig with the Latecomers.
Oh, yeah. I know the Latecomers.
Yeah, they're cool.
I was part of it.
Yeah, right. Cool. Yeah. So I met Alison doing that as well, and we got a baby the same age. We have 2 separate babies the same age, obviously. So what's my point? Christ, I ramble. The point is, when I got into the scene, it was small, but when you meet everyone, you get a good feel for how much quality there is here, and everyone's, there are great comics here. They just get no opportunity.
Yeah.
That's the problem, and the problem is that there's audiences. I mean, Comedy Marsala is packed every week. That's a quality room. I like the Merry Lion better because I like the whole grassroots feel. It feels like a real comedy club instead of just a venue. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's great people here. It's just, I guess what I'm disappointed about is how much Singapore values it. Because you know what else is weird? You guys don't get behind Ronnie Ching as much as you should. I feel like everyone in Singapore should be like, yeah, that's our boy. He's our guy. Because Ronnie's Malaysian, right?
Because he wasn't exactly part in the scene.
But he studied here. You educated him. He went to the finest schools in Singapore.
But still, it doesn't feel like... compared to
See,
fucker
this
fast.
is what
Compared to fucker fast.
Yeah, sure. See, this is what I mean. You're too straight-laced. See, if an Australian wants to... If there's a successful guy from New Zealand, Australia would just say, yeah, he's Australian. Because he would have moved to... He might have lived in Sydney for a bit. I think for years we were saying Mel Gibson was ours until it turned out he was a Nazi. Same thing with guys like Sam Neill. I'm pretty sure he's from New Zealand. Australians are just like, yeah, Sam Neill, that's our boy. Yeah, star of Jurassic Park, yeah, we own him. Yeah. See, Singapore, you're not like that. You're like, well, no, he is from across the border, so we cannot claim him as a...
because I feel like we do not have the... we don't know him that well. Like if you're talking about fucker fast, right? If you're talking about the local big acts, sure. They come out from the scene itself. They come out from they grew up from the scene itself. While Ronnie Ching started in Melbourne. So the whole distance part, the whole barrier.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Ronnie's Australian. Yeah, Ronnie's an Australian success story. Yeah, he made it big in Melbourne. And he did all the festivals in Australia. Lived in Sydney for a while. Yeah, you know what? Ronnie's an Australian comedian. Yeah. See what I mean? It's easy, man. Just lie. Biggest success story out of Melbourne. Little boy from Melbourne, by way of Malaysia.
Yeah, but yeah. So I guess like we do not talk much about him. At least not in the locals ex as well.
Yeah. Well, and he doesn't care anymore. He lives in New York. He's got a Netflix special, and he's on the Daily Show all the time. So he doesn't give a fuck.
But on newspaper itself, but on online paper itself, we like everyone was like, oh, look, he's part of Singapore and stuff like that. Like there's this paper from Mothership was like saying, oh, he's JB, but he started in Singapore, and did like a full article of him.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so
that's more like it. But that's the thing. I ask locals in the scene, what about Ronnie Ching? And they're like, no, don't really know him. Yeah, I just think it's weird. Anyway, let's stop talking about Ronnie Ching. He's very successful. He doesn't need me plugging him.
But I need his name to plug my. oh! Look at this guy. I'm going to search for Ronnie Ching, and here comes our podcast.
Yeah, great. Okay, do that. Make it happen. Whatever you need.
but you say that you moved to Singapore, like how many years ago?
Me? Moved here 2 years ago, just over 2 years. Yeah, so that's the thing. I feel like I have to mention this at every gig I do. At the start of my act, I got to clarify what I'm doing here. Because I'm a white guy, so people are like, well, you're an expat. I'm like, yeah, but I don't work here. Because my wife works here. So I'm just a trailing spouse. So I've got a baby, and I go to the gym, and that's what my life is at the moment. And I spend a lot of time on the internet.
But did you join the trailing spouse community here?
Yeah, yes and no. I guess, join a community to me sounds like entering a cult. I'm like, I hang out with lots of different people here. I would say a fraction of them are the trailing spouse. Like, there's a mother's group. We've all got babies the same age, so we do play dates together. Yeah, but as well as that, I don't know. I go do improv. I got my improv crowd. I go to stand-up, and now I know a lot more comedians, so I get to hang out with people like you, who I wouldn't have met if not for comedy, which is great. But I also got, like, some high-flying business types, the proper banker white guys who move here for the tax breaks. So I hang out with some of them. I would never hang out with them if I was still living in Sydney. But now it's just like, yeah, we're all equals. That's great. And who else I got? I got guys I jam with, friends... type bunch of guys. I know some guys who work in tech, and they're just guys my age, nerds. We go and see Marvel movies together. The drinking buddies. Yeah, I feel like I got better friend circles here than I did back in Sydney, because I just hang out with comedians there, and it gets so boring. So.
I can imagine like because I went to Sydney and I hang out with comedians or unless they open mics.
Oh yeah,
and it felt like it's. I'm not sure if I've seen one. If I went to one venue, I would have seen most of the comedians in there.
Yeah. There's just too many comedians. I feel like different rooms have different crowds as well. Like I guess I got them categorized in my head, but I don't have words for them. Like I think of a couple of names, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're all part of that scene. They all played a show called Fuck Club together. And, yeah, and then there's the Comedy Store elite kind of groups, and Sydney's very segmented. You got the north, south, east, and west. So yeah, I don't know.
Maybe because I went to the CBD area, and there's this one room that was very famous, which the comedians doesn't like.
When were you there?
A few years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I think.
Okay. I think just as I was leaving, probably. 2016, 17?
Yeah, 2016, 17.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I left end of 2017, so... And what room, do you remember, in the CBD?
I remember there's this Crown Comedy.
Wait, Crown Comedy?
Yeah,
is
this is at a Crown Hotel or
at
something.
The casino? No, the Crown, that's the Star City. I have... Oh, wait, I think I know the one you mean. It's just a pub, right?
Yeah, it's just a pub.
And there's like a stage, sort of, but it's more for music, right? And then you put comedy on, and then it's all like stools and bar seating.
It's like the room is on the side. When you walk into the door, right through the door, the room is directly just immediately on the side.
Yeah, I guess that's the flip side. When you get a place like Sydney where there's already heaps of comedy, and everyone's like, every pub just goes, you know what? We can make money out of comedy too. There's nothing happening here on a Wednesday night. No one comes in. Let's put on a comedy night. It's the opposite problem you have here, where the only time to get up is Monday night at open mic at Mary Lion, and that means you got 25 people trying to get a gig every week. And the opposite problem in Sydney is where there's comedians who are like, ugh, the only spot I can get is going to this shitty Wednesday night open mic in a pub where no one's going to pay attention, but it's a paid gig, so they go and do it, right? Like, there's opposite problem.
I don't know which one is the worst, because there are a lot of times where I would prefer the other one where because I would at least get stage time.
Yeah.
But stage time is not a quality stage time.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I don't want to go back to Ronnie again, but he was talking in a special about New York, and he does this bit where he's talking about how he does 5 or 6 gigs every night because New York has that available to him. And I kind of got, I'm not jealous of his career or anything. I'm like, he's one of the few guys in showbiz. I'm like, this guy deserves everything that comes his way. But when he said he gets to do 5 or 6 gigs a night, that's when I got jealous because I was like, man, I would love to get that much practice just so I can get better. Because I'm working on a whole new act now. And I'm like, man, I just need to get on stage. And he's doing 6 gigs a night. He's doing 30 gigs a week. I'm doing 1 gig every 3 weeks. Just hope. And then if it bombs, I'm like, all right, we're back to the drawing board. Like, there's no momentum there. Yeah, you're right. I think it's better if you get on stage. Sure, it's not quality time, but at least you get the practice.
Because there's a lot of comedians who post online. I remember there's this guy called Sam Taunton.
Sam Taunton, yeah, Sydney guy.
So he was talking about like going on stage as much as possible.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you can't go on stage too much. Like there are places the best you can go is one time per week or twice per week.
Nah, I do it all the time. Gig every night, man. Yeah, I think if you're working on your act, I think definitely because there's so much that happens in my head, at least, that I'm just like, that's kind of funny. But you got to find out, right? Because it's funny to you. That doesn't mean it's funny to everybody. And also, something can be funny in your head, but you still got to find the right way to deliver it. The right way to make it universal. Because there's stuff that I know is funny if I just get it right. But you got to get it perfect so that everybody's on board. There's stuff I say that just sounds like the ramblings of a madman. And people stare at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's funny in my head. I'll get it right soon. But if you can do that every night, you'd be like, okay, this is a bit.
There are times I go to, when I was in Melbourne, I'm like doing three gigs per night. Yeah. That ends on a Monday night.
Yeah.
And I was very excited for it because by Wednesday, my 5-minute act, whole new 5-minute act, or 5 to 7 minutes act, it's polished. It's done.
Totally.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but when it comes to Singapore, when bring to Singapore, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
So, but at least I can go like, by Wednesday, my 5 to 7 minutes act, it's done. It's polished.
Yeah.
I can do it for a couple of more.
Yeah. That's the other problem. There's lots of different reasons to get on stage. Sometimes you want to just try new stuff. Other times you want to get your tight 5 polished. So having the opportunity to do both of them, is important. The same thing is, I remember when I was gigging regularly, I had a solo act, but it was still a musical act. So I didn't do much stand-up. It was just jokes that I shoved in to make it more comedy. And I got plenty of practice doing it. But it's all I did because they were paid gigs. So they, I was getting paid to come up and do my tight 10. And that's all I did. So I didn't have anything new. I had 10 minutes. And I feel like I've got way more material now because I've had open mic opportunities in Singapore. But also, just to go on a tangent, because I'm actually more interesting now that I live here. Because when I lived in Sydney, I was just a cliche white dude in his late 20s who dresses like a hipster and has never been outside the city. I'm a boring guy in Sydney, but in Singapore, I have interesting things to talk about. I'm a different person now because I'm a parent, and I got material, which is a different reason why I have more jokes now. But yeah,
they have more jokes. Go have a child.
yeah,
and make your jokes develop.
Sure, yeah, I guess as long as they're not just the same jokes that everyone else has been doing about kids for the past 20 years. Yeah. I like to think I have a very unique and nuanced take on it. I probably don't. I'm just a boring guy. I'm just a dad who just wants to get on stage, has an ego.
But back to Edinburgh and traveling and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe because I just want to ask how do you get a spot or how would you go about doing it and stuff like that?
I don't know.
No.
I can't help you. I always feel bad about that. I'm like, again, I had such a unique experience. I was part of a group. We already had kind of an in when we did our first year. And then after that, people saw 4 chords. And I can tell you all the steps that we took and all the moments that were just luck and knowing the right people and also having something quality that we could promote. I don't know how anyone else does it. Every other solo comedian that I know who has done even had even a fraction of the success that we did, I am more impressed by that because of how much harder it is to do on your own and how much more of a risk it is. I feel like I didn't take that risk because, you know, we all took the risk together and we all did, you know, the work was all split. You share the triumphs, you share the blame, you know, you share the workload. Yeah, I don't know how anyone does it on their own.
But how do you get to 4 chords in the first place?
I'm just a musician. I heard it. I just thought of it. I've been taught music all my life. I had a good ear. I tried to learn everything by ear, and then when I started learning pop songs, I was just like, well, they're all the same. I can just hear it. You know, when people are like, how long did it take you to come up with it? I'm like, every time I heard a new 4-chord song on the radio, I just like, well, that's on the list. Yeah, and the breaking point was when someone told me to go learn Don't Stop Believing. And they were like, oh, it's a really good piano riff from the 80s. You know, it'll be really useful for your improv stuff. And I went and learned. I'm like, it's another 4-chord song. That was the turning point. That was the moment. I remember it. It was like late 2005 when my friend told me that. And I was just like, that's it. And then I put the medley together, ended up performing it in a show in Sydney when I was at university in my final year. Went very well. I started performing it a bit. We formed the band around it. They were like, I play guitar, you know, and, you know, Lee and Jordan had been improvising together for a while. They wanted to do something. And when Lee saw me playing 4 chords at a rehearsal for this improv show, he was like, oh, I want to get on board with that. And then we formed a band, and then it was a year before I let them have 4 chords. For a year, I was like, no, it's mine. I'm not going to do that with you. And then, for various reasons, I was like, all right, let's just do it with the band. I'm not doing anything else. Yeah, and then we made a new version for the band. I'm giving way too much detail here. New version with the band. We went and did the festival. No one cared about us until they saw 4 chords, and then that's what made us really popular. And then we did it at the festival, at the gala, and then it went viral. And then Ashton Kutcher tweeted it, and it got played on BBC Radio. And then, you know, performing in Edinburgh, just went gangbusters in Edinburgh. And then boom, 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 everything escalates from that. Yeah.
But that's I believe that's the peak of a career, right? And that's supposed to be like a song as well.
Oh, that's depressing. God, no. I think I got more left in me, but my career is definitely in a dip right now. I quit the band. I stormed away from comedy, and I haven't done anything in a couple of years. So yeah, I guess it was my last hurrah. Why don't I just go kill myself? Is that what you want, Gary?
I mean, for the band, Axis of Awesome, right? Like, I don't mean you personally, individually. I chose the wrong words most of the time.
Yeah, no, I don't care. I'm just very realistic about everything. I guess, I don't know. It's funny when you talk about peaks of a career, because I'm trying to remember what the peak was. And the thing is, I feel like we peaked in 2010. Like, that wasn't our most successful year. When did we... Hang on, I was thinking about this. Maybe it was a couple of months ago. I was thinking about the best moments that happened. And not knowing at the time... You know what? It was the beginning of 2011. We played this charity gig in LA. It was a huge gig. It was at a stadium. 6,500 people. Yeah, Gibson Amphitheatre. It was the most illustrious lineup I've ever played. I've still got a photo of the lineup. Steve-O from Jackass.
Oh, shit.
Ray Romano. Perth guy. Has his own show. Australian, the gun control dude. Damn it. His name's just popped out of my head.
Is it
Jim Jeffries? Jim Jeffries.
Yeah.
Jim Jeffries. Patton Oswalt. Patton Oswalt had to follow us, and he was the nicest guy. Man, he was the one I was excited about meeting. I came in to say hi and get a photo because I was a little fanboy. I'm just like 23, and I told him I was in Axis of Awesome. And he'd looked us up. He saw we were on the bill. He didn't know who we were, so he Googled us. He saw some clips. He was like, oh, my God, I love those videos you had up. He was just, man, best guy in showbiz, I swear. Got a photo with me. He did a joke photo as well. That was the coolest thing. Who else was on that gig? A couple other, just all massive names. Yeah. And we'd never played more people. And it sucks to look back at that just to be like, that was the best thing we ever did. Charity gig in LA on the most illustrious lineup. And I don't know how our management didn't spin more stuff out of that. But like, to think that we peaked at the beginning of the year when at the end of that year we'd be in debt and we'd hate each other because we'd been stuck in LA burning money and living with, two other people that we couldn't stand. And just to think we kept going for another 6 years. No, my career peaked in 2011. Like, it never got better than that. That's the problem. Like, it was still work, and like we had bigger audiences. Generally, like 2014 was a great year. We did a huge tour, but it's just, man, it's hard looking back now because it's all coloured by your personal life and, your interaction with the band and how much you enjoyed it. And I'm like, yeah, man, it never got better than that one gig. Played a stadium, smashed it. People said we were the best thing of the night because we were the underdog. Never heard of us. 3 guys from Australia, like, who were these clowns? Yeah, we killed it. It was so fun. Never got better than that. How depressing. Yeah, man. I don't know. Yeah, and it's weird as well when you talk about 4 chords being like the moneymaker, and it's like, yeah, it was back then, but now go on YouTube, type in 4 chords. There's a million different versions, people doing their own version. Some of them saying, oh, I'm doing a cover of The Axis of Awesome. A lot of them just being like, hey, look at this thing I discovered. I'm like, shut up, you didn't discover that. It's been on the internet since 2007.
Did you just comment on, did you just go, fuck you, I'm the one who discovered the thing?
No, I'm bigger than that. Like, no, the best thing, other people do that for us. I had someone, when was this? I like this story. It's a couple of years ago, someone sent us a clip of people doing a TED talk. It was like one of those TEDx things. And they were just performing 4 chords as an a cappella choir. But they were doing our version, and not just our version of the songs. They were doing all the banter, all the jokes about, with all the props and stuff. And lots of people commented, this is Acts of Awesome, this is a rip-off. Every comment was just like, take it back to 2009, you losers. And then someone sent it to me, and I saw that it was TEDx, and not a lot of people know this about me, but my brother works for TEDx. So I messaged him, and I was like, hey, why are you letting plagiarism happen? And he shut it down. He got the video taken off the internet. He told them they couldn't do any more TED conferences. And they were like, why didn't you give credit to the guy? You guys are in trouble. And they were like, oh, we're so sorry. We thought we could do it. And it's like the only time in my life I could go to my older brother and get him to protect me the way, that high school cliche. Because he's a year older than me, so he was, it's not like he ever protected me. I can fight my own fights. But it was kind of nice to just be like, get this thing off the internet for me. And he did. But
to see your stuff plagiarized, is it a good thing or bad thing? Like, I feel like it feels like an ego boost, but yet it's.
I don't know. I'm really torn about it because I think there's no. First of all, I don't care about money because, for one, we don't make money from internet versions of 4 chords because all the studios claim the royalties. They're like, oh, you got Elton John in there? Well, that belongs to us. Between Disney and Sony and all the others, it's like, yeah.
What, they send you a letter? They're saying...
No, they just claim it on YouTube. Yeah, you know how... Yeah, you do a cover and then, a studio will be like, well, that's ours, so all the royalties are going to come to us. But thank you for putting it up. They want it. They want it to happen. Yeah, so the money's not an issue. But also, I'm like, does anybody really own it? Because plenty of people had discovered this before me. Most musicians I know that immediately. When you asked how did I come up with it, I'm like, 'cause I'm a musician. I heard it. And I know so many musicians who also just hear it because they got training and good ears. And But they don't think twice about it because they're just like, well, pop music sucks. I'm going to go do something better. And they're all in jazz and classical, or they're just composing or whatever. And I feel like I was in a rare position where I straddled the world of comedy because I did all the impro, and I was deeply invested in pop music because I find it really fun. But I also have a classical background, and I got that training. So I spent a lot of time talking to people who didn't know that. I guess that's the other advantage. I hung out with a lot of idiots when I was in high school. I'd go to parties and I'd be like, these two songs are identical. They'd be like, nah, man. I'd be like, I didn't think anyone would argue with me when I was right. Okay, I guess I need to prove it. And that was a big part of it. It was a massive chip on my shoulder where I was just like, actually, I think you'll find they are all the same. And then I got famous doing it. So I was like, yeah, who's right now, motherfucker?
You won. You fought the bullies and you won.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm a very bitter person. They weren't even bullies. They were my friends. They were just like, no, man. They weren't bullying me because I disagreed with musical taste. They were just people I hung out with.
But what kind of... Okay, if we would put a stereotype of a high school guy in a high school teenage movie flick,
yeah,
who would you put yourself in?
Oh, music nerd, totally. But it's hard to say because have you ever watched an American? We're talking about American cliche frat boy, American Pie style high school movies, right? Have you ever looked at any of those characters and identified with a single one of them? Like, because they're all artificial. Maybe they're realistic in America, but I feel like movies like that are very skewed towards certain demographics, like rich white people. And I feel like more realistic movies. Have you seen Bo Burnham's 8th Grade?
No, not yet. But I've watched a little bit of Freaks and Geeks.
Freaks and Geeks. Oh yeah, okay. I haven't seen Freaks and Geeks. I hear that maybe that's a similar thing, more realistic take on high school. Have you watched the American Vandal series?
Oh,
American Vandal. Now that I feel is a more realistic portrayal of what high schools are like, because they have the first series, which is set in like a public high school, and then they have the second, which is in an elite private school. And I think you get a much better portrayal in that kind of media more recently than you do in a frat boy movie like American Pie.
I feel like movies like American Pie, they have to make it like they have to, right? In a sense, they have to make it like one-dimensional story.
When you say they have to what end? In order to make money, you mean?
No, it's more like, look, it's just a bunch of guys. Like the whole, it fits.
Yeah, you don't
it helps the story,
have to do that. You know what you can do is not make that movie. you can not make a terrible film instead of saying we have to make it bad. It's like you can not make it at all. It's like having no ingredients in your kitchen. It's like, well, I'm gonna have to just make this cake out of some stale bread, and I'll pour some milk on it, and I'll mush it around with some paint thinner, and bake it for 20 minutes and see what happens. How about you just don't do that, Go get some takeout from someone who's better than you at making movies.
But I need the money to make money, guys.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, look, I get that. I just feel like there's been so much change in media over the past 20 years. When did American Pie come out? 2000? 2001?
2001.
That's like 20 years ago now. And so much has changed because the internet, everyone gets a voice. People start standing up and being like, actually, no one is represented by that except for a small percentage. So you get beautiful movies like 8th Grade, where you get a more realistic portrayal of the whole freaks and geeks and jocks versus nerds thing.
I think it's because people grew up from there and they kind of drew like even...
They want to imitate it. Yeah. People grow up thinking, I'm going to be the cool R&B guy who's taking his shirt off at parties and drinking from red cups, and we're just going to break stuff and dive in the pool naked. And I don't know. When I met those kind of guys at parties, I was just like, I hate you. I don't want anything to do with you, you douchebag high school cliche. And like, okay, so my point before was... I'm sure that there are some commonalities in Australia, but I grew up in Sydney, and that's a real bubble. Like, you want to talk about what school's like in Sydney? Man, I'd love if there was a movie that accurately represented. If there was a show like American Vandal that skewered what Sydney school is like, because I didn't know this about myself growing up, but when I met people from at university who came from other parts of Australia, I would knee-jerk ask them, what school did you go to? And they would always be like, you grew up in Sydney, didn't you? Because only Sydney people ask me that. I was like, I didn't know that about myself. But that's a Sydney thing, to be defined by what school you went to. Because we go, you know what? You would have a lot more in common with this, being a Singaporean.
Yeah.
I feel like we got a lot more in common in that respect than I do with anyone from New Zealand or even Queensland, America, UK. Singapore, you get what it's like. It was like, did you go to private school? Okay, cool.
Did you go to this school that was being there's been worshipped by a lot of parents? Yeah, I came from that school.
Yeah,
and just share about the school name and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You come
right.
from NUS? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, see, everyone knows these acronyms, you know? People went, did you go to a CAS school or a GPS school? Oh, it was a Catholic school. Oh, okay, yeah, Catholics, they get a lot of money to get those tax breaks. Yeah, cool. Yeah, you went to St. Joey's? Oh, that's a football school. Oh, yeah, were you a rugby player? Yeah, cool, man, what position, you know? It's so insular, like it's already a bubble growing up in a private school. But then if it's in Sydney as well, it's this connection, it's this network of bubbles. It's weird. So yeah, when I watch American films like that, I'm like, is that what the rest of the world's like? Cool. And we thought we were copying that, you know, because you get this whole jocks and geeks thing, but there's also like, I went to a school that had drug dealers. Like, there were guys selling ecstasy out of their lockers. I went to a school where there was, like, race war. These spoiled private school boys, let me specify that this was an all-boys school. And they were like, man, there was a moment in our high school that every year that goes by, the older I get, the more I look back on it with just this shock and shame that it happened in a place that I attended. Two guys one afternoon kicked the shit out of someone. And I mean, they broke his eye socket. They kicked him to the ground and they just beat the shit out of him. And I never knew why. And we're pretty sure it was just cliche bullying, but it was also like basically gang warfare. Because it was these two Greek dudes kicking the shit out of this Asian guy.
How big is the gang problem there?
It's not gang. It's just cliques and you know, these high school kids who think they're larger than life because their parents are rich, and they just get raised with this whole mentality of like, I'm a fucking tough son of a bitch, and they just fight because they're not hanging out with girls at school every day, so they're just competing with each other, and there's all this testosterone just getting mushed around. And there's no one there to be like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And anyway, afterwards, the whole year, it was a couple of years of us, actually. I think it was maybe year 11 and year 10. We all got brought into the assembly, and there was this teacher. It was the most human thing that a teacher ever did when I was at school, and he just was on the verge of tears, being like, you all just stood around and watched. Where were the men to say, no, this is not on? And I'm like, fuck, I'm glad I wasn't there, because there's no way I would have been brave enough to do that. But I also like to think that I would have got a teacher at least, you know? And man, the more I look back on them, I'm like, boys are animals. Yeah. You know what? Moonlight. Now there's a movie that had even still a more accurate representation of what high school was like for me. And that's like, you know, American public poverty and hatred, you know? That's a real show of that. And you don't have that at a private school. It's just hatred. You know?
Got too much time on your hands.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I see something like that, I'm like, that's a more accurate representation. American Pie is a fantasy. Moonlight, that's, you know, that's more realistic. Yeah, 8th grade, that's what high school's like. Man, I can't imagine what high school's like with social media. That's a grim landscape. I'm so glad Facebook didn't exist when I was at high school. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I'm really in high school, like when there's no social media, it's all fees and it's all face and kicks, right? It's all fighting and physical thing, and I'm
with
not
the boys, yeah, I guess. But that still happens, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. You got boys are still aggressive, you know. Kids. I have a 1-year-old, and you have the same problem with, you know, with little girls. I have a little girl, and it's just not the same. You know, they'll like not understand how to interact with each other. They don't ask please and thank you. They don't talk yet. They'll just see a toy and they'll just take it out of someone's hands. But the boys are just more violent,
But I feel like when boys and girls grow up, right?
Yeah.
Boys tend to like they realize the things that they do are wrong.
Do they?
Don't we? Like okay, what about the two guys that you grew up? The two bullies, right? What happened to them?
Wait, which two?
The one that kicked the shit out of the Asian guy.
Oh, I got no idea. I don't know.
Because
I don't talk to anybody. I went to high school. I didn't talk to them when I was at high school. Like, I don't know. You know what? I guarantee they're working in business somewhere, or they're in real estate. Yeah, that's what all those kids did. They all got into positions.
Because my bully in my secondary school or high school or middle school, right? They grew up. They become a better person. They have family. They have a successful career.
Yeah, look, that's the thing. Those guys who were dealing drugs at high school, they could still be dealing drugs now. They still could have grown up real tough. And I like to think that they made that money and then they just put it into some other business scheme. And here's the problem: they're not violent now, but they're still dodgy. Whatever they do in business, I'm sure it's criminal somewhere. I'm sure they're laundering money through whatever. I'm sure they got business fronts. I'm sure maybe when I was are the police listening? When I was doing drugs in Sydney, like there'd be times when you'd find out about a lot of businesses that were just fronts. You go past a pizza shop and it was a really popular pizza, but it was like, oh yeah, they deal drugs out the back. Yeah, it's just that's how they launder their drug money. They just put it through the pizza store. It was like, oh, okay. It was just an interesting insight into the seedy underbelly of.
You can see that here as well, but it's even more subtle.
Yeah, see that I'm fascinated by that because, like, it's lower risk in Sydney. There's less at stake. We got caught smoking weed in the park once, and the cops were like, "You little scamps, run along now, run home, you little white kids. We know you're going home to your rich houses, so it's okay." And other people will go to jail for that shit, but like. To think that it happens in a place where the death penalty is on the cards, I'm like, no, thank you. I will stay sober.
I mean, most of us would be like kept, like because most of us like do not have a connection and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
But
you should go to Marquee.
Where?
You should go to Marquee. Yeah, I was there. My mate was DJing there, so we went. There's kids doing lines in the bathroom. It blew my mind. I was just like, how rich do your parents have to be that you can pay your way out of the death penalty? Like, damn.
I want to meet those people. Yeah, okay. I feel like drugs are when you're a kid and you're doing drugs, it's kind of like wasted. But if you grow older.
You simply must do drugs as an adult. You can afford better drugs, better quality. You can do them in better environments. When I was doing drugs as a teenager, that was like some homeschool shit. That was boring. You're hiding in parks and you're just like, where are we going to go smoke? And then you graduate because it's a gateway drug, as they all say. But then you start going out to clubbing and partying a bit more, so you get to do some ecstasy. But even then, you're still a little bit too juvenile. What you want to do is you get old enough where you've got friends who work in television who can get you the best cocaine that there is. And you can just, you're a couple of steps away, so you can just call your mate and go, hey, can you organize this for me? And you get it delivered, like an adult does, like a grown-up does drugs. None of this schoolboy nonsense. You do drugs properly, Get yourself a high-quality wine.
That's what all adults do, right?
Yeah,
look at all.
Yeah. Oh man, I just want to do drugs now.
I'll not ask like how much drugs do you do. I would like to. Like we're in Singapore right now. Everything is based on allegations right now.
Right? Yeah. Sure. Wait, are you asking me to?
No, I'm not gonna ask.
No, I can be honest. I don't do drugs in Singapore because like.
It's like scary, right? And
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I know it's kind of not true. I feel like. On one hand, as an expat, I can get away with anything. Like the rules don't apply to me. It's crazy the way it operates. But also, it's not like I'm some high-flying banker who knows politicians. Like, if I did something wrong, we'd get, we get our IDs taken away and we get sent home. We can never come back, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I like your airport. You know, I want to be able to at least have a stop over here. Yeah. I'm also like a parent, you know, I had my fun. I'm like 34 now and I'm busy raising a kid. So I'm like, I don't need to do, I'm not an addict. I do it for fun. And I'm not going to be high while I'm raising my kid. I mean, like, look, I've been parenting drunk plenty. And if anything, I parent better when I've had a few. But I don't need to go out and do drugs. So I don't really care about Singapore stopping me. But yeah, I'm also not going to do it here because I'm like, it's too much at risk. Even though secretly I'm just like, if I had a connection, I could totally just... But that's the other thing about being an adult. It's like, I don't want to go out to a club and be high dancing with a bunch of people 15 years younger than me. I'm not really into that. I'd be the weird creepy guy.
I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like because I've not done that.
Yeah, right.
I feel I've missed the age for doing that. I'm 30 days here.
Yeah,
And
you know what? You know what you should do? You should go to an outdoor music festival. You want to get yourself to like Reading Festival in the UK, go to Coachella, come down to Sydney, go to Meredith, or go to the Blues and Roots, go to Splendour in the Grass, an outdoor 3-day long-running, multi-stage music festival. That's the perfect place to just go and do drugs in a field. That's how you want to do it, because people of all ages can get together and just celebrate the music and the drugs that they love. You want to do it properly, go do that.
I'll be able to go there and just go, can you teach me how to do it? No, you just pop it. No.
You know what? This is the same advice I would give you about getting a gig in Edinburgh. You just need to know somebody who's done it before, okay? Ask someone, like, it doesn't have to be a promoter. You want to find someone else who's gone there and done a room or done the drugs before, and they know a guy who can hook you up, you know? Just, yeah, same thing.
You just know a guy who do
You just got to know a guy. You know a guy who knows a guy. Yeah, I don't think... As I got older... That's when I got closer and closer to... Wow, it's so funny thinking the parallels between getting gigs and doing drugs. As you get older and you're more experienced at it, you can start cutting out the middlemen. You don't need to ask another comic who knows a guy who runs a room. I got so close, I got to be able to talk directly with promoters who would bring you out and say, yeah, we can give you this stage. Look, this is the ticket split that we'll do. We can hire these theaters for you. We'll do the advertising. Same thing. I knew a guy who got shit straight off the boat. Like, this guy, he was maybe 2 steps away from the people who were smuggling the shit. That's what you get from experience, from practice, from honing your craft, regardless of what it is. Don't do drugs. Don't do comedy. Do drugs. Don't do comedy. Comedy's much harder than doing drugs. I love that you're like, I need to learn how to do it. It's like, well, what drugs? What's so complicated about, like, someone will give you a portion and you fucking ingest it any way you want. You can stick them up your bum if you want to. You snort it. You put it in your mouth. Like, don't put it in your ear.
What about tying up?
Don't do intravenous drugs. That's a barrier that I'm not going to cross until I find out that I've got cancer or some shit, you know? That's a step that I'm just like, yeah, I think I have a lot of willpower. Like, I quit smoking. If I tell myself, okay, I'm not going to drink for a month, then I can do that standing on my head. Sometimes that just happens accidentally. And I'm like, I haven't had a drink in ages because I'm not hooked on anything. And since moving to Singapore, I haven't done shit in 2 years. So, well, except for when we go back to Sydney and we do whatever. But I'm like, I don't think I have enough willpower to try something if heroin's as good as everyone says it is, then it's like, well, if I'm going to do it once and that'll be the end of me. Like, I'm not that strong. I am strong, but I don't have that much willpower. So yeah, don't do intravenous drugs. There's a lot of effort and there's a lot of, plus you meet the people who do intravenous drugs. They're not party people. Yeah, they're not fun-loving. Hey, let's go to a club and my favorite band's playing, and then we'll go get some drinks, and we can go. We'll have a lot of energy, and then we'll do some lines in the bathroom, and that'll be cool. No, they're like, let's go hide in my car, and let's go to be addicts. Yeah, and I've
So that's the end of my conversation with Benny Davis. Fun guy to talk to, right? Very nice guy. I know he got cut off at the end very abruptly before we can say thank you and me concluding the whole episode, because I got into like a technical error which can't be solved until I came back home to solve it, right? So he is a nice guy, right? As much as how the podcast may sound like. If you like this podcast, go to notagainpodcast.com. Go check out the previous episodes. Go to facebook.com/notagainpodcast. Go like the Facebook page if you haven't done so. It would be nice to see or read reviews as well, right? Tell me what you think about the podcast as well. I'm on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe it. I'm on Stitcher Radio. I'm on Spotify as well. Go rate and review if you can. And with that, right, that's the end, right? It's always fun to see you around, guys. See you next week. See ya.